Have a good meeting.
We'll go ahead and call this meeting of the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee to order for Monday, April 10th, 2023. We will do the roll call. Oh, actually, sorry, I'll let the committee and the audience know that this meeting is being recorded. We'll do the roll call. Dave?
Here.
Jessica?
Here.
June?
Here.
Lisa?
Here.
I don't see Mike. Randy?
Yes.
Susan? I don't see Tom.
Here.
And I am here, so that is a quorum. Our next scheduled meeting for the North Middlesex Regional School Committee will be held at 7 p.m. on Monday, May 1st. First order of business is to open the public hearing for FY 23-24 school choice. So we'll open that hearing, and this public hearing is for school choice for the year 2023-2024, according to Chapter 76, Section 12B of the Massachusetts General Laws. Anybody interested in speaking on this topic will have the opportunity to be heard. I don't know if there's an intro from superintendent or someone on your team.
Just wanted to recommend to the committee, just based on the FY24 budget situation and the outlook moving forward, at least for, again, FY24, is that we do not have a school choice for the fiscal year 2024 in any of our schools.
All right.
Reason for that is just too many questions with class size.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent. Randy, a question, comment?
Just a question is, in the past, as far as I know, we've never opted out of school choice. There have been many years that we've had no slots available, but I don't remember ever opting out. So just wondering, what does that entail, or not entail, but what are the consequences or pros and cons of actually opting out versus staying in and not having any slots available?
So it's my understanding that it's just more or less that we do not have slots available for school choice, and that is something that we can change. The issue with opting into school choice, so by making slots available, you cannot reverse that decision. So by saying right now we do not have school choice slots available, it basically means that we can, if things become a little bit clearer over the course of the summer, we could actually open up some slots to fill out some classes once we have, again, a better idea as to what the move-in situation looks like, just because things change, as everyone knows, over the course of the spring and summer. And we just want to make sure that we're not doing anything that's going to potentially force the hiring of an additional teacher due to school choice.
And it's just for incoming students. There's no effect on students in our district for some reason that wanted to choice out. We're not limiting that.
No, so it has no impact on students that choice out. It also has no impact on current school choice students. So any students that are currently choiced into the district, they remain students of North Middlesex. So it would just be any new students entering the district at this time. And again, there is a possibility we may move to change that come some point in the summer. But we just want to make sure that we have a better understanding as to what our numbers look like, especially with kindergarten, where there do tend to be a good number of requests, and kindergarten registration does not always match up to the actual numbers. So we just want to be sure that we have clear numbers, that's all.
Dave?
So I have two questions here. One, does that prohibit students from our district into opting into any other schools? And then the second one is, what's the impact on teachers who maybe teachers that are new to our district who might want to put their students into our schools?
So that would have an impact as far as teachers wanting to opt their students into our schools. That would have an impact if we don't have school choice. There are many districts out there that actually have a provision in their collective bargaining agreement that allows teachers, if there's room, to have their students attend schools within the district. I do not believe we have anything that speaks to that in our current collective bargaining agreement. As far as the first part of the question, can you just clarify?
Yep, so anybody from North Middlesex that wish to attend a different school, would that prohibit them from doing that?
Within the district? So a student from Townsend that wants to go to Pepperell?
A student from Pepperell who wanted to go to Lowell, for example.
No, it would have no impact on them. So each school district either has school choice slots open or they do not. So for instance, if we had a student that wanted to attend Groton Dunstable Regional High School and they had school choice slots open, and it was made available to our student, then our student would in fact be able to attend Groton Dunstable Regional High School if they chose to.
No, I literally
Great,
don't know.
thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from committee members?
I just, if you don't mind, Chairman, I just wanted to reiterate, we can change this decision. We just can't go back on a vote on the affirmative of providing seats. Once we do that, we cannot go back on that decision. So we do have some flexibility with this, which is why at this point in time, I'm recommending it to the committee.
All right. All right, seeing no other comments from the committee, anybody from the public who wishes to speak to this matter, if you can raise your hand on the call, and then we will give you the opportunity to speak about school choice. All right, seeing none. Any other questions, comments on this matter from anybody? All right, then I will take a motion to opt out, have the district opt out of participation in school choice program and not enroll school choice students for the 2023-24 school year due to budget restraints and space availability.
So moved.
Second.
Lisa and Tom, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, this is to opt out of school choice. Dave?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so that is unanimous. Thank you. Take a vote now to take a motion to close the public hearing on school choice.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So the public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the regular agenda, we have the consent agenda, approval of minutes from March 20th, accounts payable warrants, payroll warrants, and a series of donations. If folks are good, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Lisa and June, thank you. Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So that is also unanimous. Thank you. Next up, we have public communications. We did have one member of the public request to speak. Miss Kelly, if you could raise your hand just so I know that you're out there. Thought I saw you. There we go. All right. You should be good to unmute, Kelly, and if you just state your name, address, and then you'll have about 3 minutes. And
Sure. My name is Kelly, 5 Tourist Lane, Townsend, Mass. On January 11th, 2023, the district held professional development for its teachers and staff. Following this professional development, I learned that the special education paraprofessionals receive training on dyslexia. The staff watched a series of videos from Vector Solutions, one which focused on the Davis method. For those of you that are unaware, the Davis method was developed in the early 1980s by a severely dyslexic man named Ronald Davis. Mr. Davis was an engineer with no training in neuroscience, research, education, or literacy. The Davis method hinges on his belief that dyslexia is caused by perceptual and visual disorientations, and that treatment should focus on resolving the sources of disorientation through a series of exercises involving clay. Instruction in phonics and phonemic awareness is not endorsed in the Davis method. At the same time, researchers in the field of neuroscience and literacy were conducting fMRI imaging studies that have pretty conclusively proven how a typical child's brain learns to read, the instruction that is required for a child to be successful at reading, and what is happening in the brain of a dyslexic learner. Close to 100 years of extensive research into the field of dyslexia and literacy have proven definitively that dyslexia is caused by phonological processing deficits, not a visual or perceptual disorder such as Davis suggested. Based on this research, districts are getting on board with what is now known as the science of reading, which is evidence in research-based literacy instruction, including direct and systematic phonics and phonemic awareness instruction. When I found out that NM had offered professional development in the Davis method, I reached out to a number of licensed and certified dyslexia interventionists, as well as the head of Decoding Dyslexia Mass, Nancy Duggan. All were confused how this professional development was offered, given the intense focus on the science of reading and evidence-based literacy instruction in Mass and across the country, as well as the development of the Mass Literacy Initiative and the Mass Dyslexia Guidelines. I emailed Mr. Brooks informing him my concern, including links to critical analyses and literacy blogs that supported my concern regarding the Davis method. Mr. Brooks responded to my email, and to paraphrase his response, told me that since dyslexics learn in a variety of ways, it is okay to have staff receive professional development in a variety of methods. Our students deserve to receive instruction by teachers and staff trained in methods that are overwhelmingly supported by the decades of peer-reviewed literacy and dyslexia research. To be clear, the largest dyslexia organizations in the world, including the International Dyslexia Association, do not endorse or accredit the Davis method, nor is the Davis method used widely throughout school districts across the United States. The Davis method website makes it appear that their method is grounded in research. However, numerous legitimate research organizations have expressed concern in the validity of those studies. A technical report conducted by researchers in New Zealand in 2015 stated, quote, while a number of anecdotal reports exist, no independent research on the efficacy of the Davis program could be found, nor any randomized clinical trials. No studies on the claimed effects of the Davis program on other learning problems such as dysgraphia, dyscalculia, ADD, auditory perception deficits, or motor coordination difficulties could be found. It appears then that there is no reliable scientific evidence to support the efficacy of the Davis program, end quote. Researchers and dyslexia interventionists across the world cite concerns about the Davis method's reliance on small case studies and heavy reliance on anecdotal record keeping. Concerns regarding researcher bias and flawed study designs are also cited frequently. The Davis method has not undergone the rigors of the peer review process across decades like other supported methods, including Orton Gillingham. As we have learned as an educational community about flawed literacy research, i.e. Lucy Calkins and Fountas and Pinnell, just because a curriculum or program developer puts a few studies on the websites to suggest that they are research-based, it does not mean we can accept their claims at face value. For fiscal year 23, the district paid over $3,700 to Vector Solutions for their professional development platform for special education training and other professional development topics. The teachers and staff in NM deserve high quality professional development, and our children deserve to receive instruction from adults that have been properly trained. Our dyslexic students are already struggling to learn. They do not have a single minute of instructional time to waste on methods not endorsed by the International Dyslexia Association, Decoding Dyslexia Mass, or the volumes of legitimate peer-reviewed research studies. I thank the committee for their time tonight and for giving me the opportunity to advocate on behalf of our dyslexic learners. I'm hopeful the school committee will look into these concerns regarding the Davis method. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate you taking the time to address us this evening.
Thank you very much.
I guess in terms of these comments, I guess Superintendent, does this falls under special education and Mr. Brooks, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We can certainly discuss it with Mr. Brooks. We can address it at a future meeting if that is acceptable to the committee.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I'm seeing some head nods, so unless anybody objects to that. All right. Mr. Brooks, and just this is not on the agenda, so we can't get into too much detail, but if you want to add a couple comments.
I was just going to say, if the committee would like me to share a list of the professional development topics that that the pair has received for the entirety of the school year, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, yeah, I think that would help in terms of context, and then just some background on, as Ms. Kelly stated, the Davis method and why that's supported and should be offered.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, I think that was it for public communications. So moving on to reports, chairperson's report. I just have two quick things. One, Governor Healy has extended the open meeting law exemption for remote meetings through, I think it's March 31st, 2025, if I have that right. So we're good to continue meeting remotely. I know we've talked about this a number of times. And with budgets the way they are, it may not be realistic, but to try to find a way to allow us to meet in person with the public able to listen in remotely, just again to keep the participation up, but also allow us to meet in person and maybe be a little more productive in our discussions and our meetings face to face. But I don't know if we made any progress. At least I don't know if you were the one looking into that with Jeremy and team, or where we're at with that.
We have not made any significant changes yet.
Okay. So I guess I would just ask that we continue down that path if possible and see if there's any workable solution. The other item that I had is I was just made aware that our next meeting, which is scheduled for May 1st at 7 p.m. is the same time and date of the Pepperell town meeting. Traditionally, because that is our organizational meeting, we've met, and I say traditionally, I guess pre-COVID, have met at Nissitissit prior to Pepperell's town meeting, I think at 6 p.m. Are folks good with that, or folks rather pick a different day? Or is there no preference? And if there's no preference, we'll go with 6 p.m. on May 1st. Randy?
I would say if we're going to continue to do this remote, I don't see any reason why that couldn't work. So I'm, I think we should just go with that if nobody else has any objections.
Okay.
Craig, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Is it in person or is it remote meeting?
Well, if we do it remote, I mean, we would need a way, at least for myself or others who plan to go to the Pepperell town meeting, to be at Nissitissit.
I apologize. I meant to say in person.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
I apologize.
No worries. So folks are good with in person at Nissitissit 6 p.m. on May 1st. It is just our organizational meeting unless there's anything urgent that needs to be discussed on that agenda. But generally that again would just be our organizational meeting that usually happens right after elections. All right, so we will move that to Monday, May 1st, 6 p.m. at Nissitissit in person for our next meeting. And that was the two quick items that I had. Superintendent Morgan, do you have anything for your report?
Sure, just a couple of quick things as well. Our bullying prevention and intervention plan is up for review with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and something that is new beginning this year is that they do want there to be the opportunity for the public to comment on the document. So it is something that we've already sent off to legal just to make sure that we're up to date on all of our policies and procedures with regard to the prevention and intervention plan. So the plan is for this week is to implement those changes and then put it up on the district website with the ability to comment on it at some point later this week. So I will put something out to the community, making sure that they're aware of it, so that if someone does want to review it, they'll have the opportunity to review it and make comment on it using some method, again, whichever we put out to the community. And we'll give probably a week or two to do that, and then we will submit it to DESE for approval. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece, this will be coming out in writing to the district tomorrow, is because of a little bit of a snow day issue we had this year. We have different last days of school for schools in the district. Wednesday, Wednesday, June 21st will be the last day for the high school, Varnum Brook and Nissitissit. That will be a half day. And then you will have Ashby, Spalding, and Hawthorne Brook with a full day. And then on Thursday, the 22nd, will be the last day of school for Ashby, Spalding, and Hawthorne, and that will be a half day. And again, this will be coming out in writing to everyone tomorrow. So it should be clear. I just had to wait until April 1st rolled around to make sure that there were no additional emergencies and make sure that we had our dates squared away, but it will be going out tomorrow to the communities. I did, for the record, I did appeal with the Department of Ed to see if there was anything that we could do to avoid Ashby, Spalding, and Hawthorne Brook having to come back for that half day. And that appeal, I did not win on that appeal. I was looking to do anything, even if it meant adding time onto the school day to make up for that lost time. And that was not something. DESE is definitely more focused on days in school as opposed to hours. So unfortunately, that was not something I was successful in. So we will have 3 schools attending on Thursday, June 22nd for a half day.
All right. June, you have a question?
If I remember correctly, is 8th grade graduation typically the day before the official last day of school?
That's generally up to the schools and how they do that. I have not heard anything at this point as to when 8th grade graduation is. But I believe that has been past practice. I don't fully remember with COVID intervening in the middle there during my time in the district, but I can certainly ask the middle school administration to get something out to the public ASAP on that as well.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Not a problem.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Next up, we have under new business out-of-state field trip requests from Mr. Webster. I don't see on. Is there anybody else who can speak to this, Superintendent?
I'm not aware of it, so I'm not sure if Miss Ivy is.
So there is some, I think I put it in the packet. There's information, it's about they want to attend it's a performance field trip to Mystic Seaport and the Mystic Aquarium, Connecticut.
All right, so this looks like a day trip, no cost to the district. About $50 cost to each student, grades 6 through 8. About 45 students, 8 to 10 adults on June 14th.
But out of state.
Out of state, yeah, Mystic, Connecticut. It looks like a charter bus for that. So, Randy, you have a question?
I was going to say, I know a little bit about this trip as my kids have gone on it, and I'm glad to see that they are still doing it. Until you said it was a one-day trip. It used to be, I thought it was a 2-day trip or something like that. But if it's a one-day trip, it's a one-day trip. I'm just bringing that up now. It's always been a great trip for the kids. They go down, they actually do music performance with the band. So they are performing in public for people, and then they get to go around to the Mystic Aquarium and see the seaport a little bit for just some fun after they do their performance. I'm completely in favor of this. It has happened for many years, and as far as I know, it's always been a very good experience for the kids.
Awesome. Excellent. Anyone else have questions or comments? All right. Yeah, it does look like a great opportunity. So I'll take a motion for the school committee to approve the Hawthorne Brook Middle School out-of-state trip to Mystic, Connecticut to visit the Mystic Seaport and Mystic Aquarium on June 14th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Jessica and David. Any last questions, comments? All right, Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan. I didn't hear you, Susan, if you were talking. Still can't hear you.
Your mute's going off, but we can't hear
I
anything.
don't hear anything. Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so that be 7, 8 yeses, or 7 yeses, 1 abstention. Next, we have a statement of interest for Hawthorne Brook Middle School. Miss Haynes?
Hi, good evening. This is the approval of the school committee approving the statement of interest to be submitted to MSBA to request that they consider the Hawthorne Brook Middle School for a core project. This would be the kickoff communication to MSBA to let them know that we're interested, give them as much information as possible through the statement of interest form. And it does require a specific vote, which identifies the priorities that we're looking to submit the statement of interest under, including priority 5 and priority 7. So what's the wording is correct in the agenda, but the addition of priority 5 should be added if it's a motion is made. And I have that. I believe Robin has that as well.
Yeah, it's in the packet, Nancy. I added the updated verbiage.
Yeah, it doesn't commit the district to any specific project or any approach other than communicating to MSBA our interest. And it's required that that statement of interest be submitted by Friday, the 14th.
Robin, where is it's not on the agenda, it's in is it in the folder, the new business folder?
Yes, it should be. Sorry.
It is there. I have it up if you'd like me to read it, Craig.
Yeah, that'd be great, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
I move to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated April 14th, 2023 for the Hawthorne Brook Middle School located at 64 Brookline Street, Townsend, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy related costs in a school facility. And priority 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the North Middlesex Regional School District to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
A second.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All right, any questions or comment? And thank you, Randy. Any questions or comments on the motion to submit Hawthorne Brook? Just a clarification, Nancy. So this is really just submitting into, is it a specific program from MSBA similar to like the repair projects we've done on other buildings, or is this like a reimbursement program, or is it an outright grant, or all of the above? It's just whatever they determine we're eligible for. Like, how does that?
It is the core program, which would the next step would be, if we're invited into the program, would be to proceed with a feasibility study, which would come back to the school committee and address whatever requirements the MSBA has for the building and for us to consider as part of the project. There is no accelerated repairs this year. Those have been discontinued for this 1 year, at least at this point. And I think they've had just so many different projects submitted in the past few years that they pulled that back. So this would be a review, that it's a regular core project for either renovation or replacement, depending on how that feasibility study were to go.
And that's in terms of the level of funding, is that similar where it's a percentage reimbursement?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, missed that.
Yep, no, it's okay.
Yeah, that gets as is determined as part, they look at the district and the local towns, and they make a determination what we qualify for. In addition to that, sometimes there's like lead points, like with the high school. It would be very similar to how the high school project progressed,
Right.
where we would have a project funding agreement on the front end with a percentage, knowing what that percentage would be prior to moving forward.
Excellent. All right, anybody else have questions or comments before we vote? All right, seeing none. Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Tom?
Whoop, whoop.
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so that's unanimous. We have nothing under old business. Moving on to subcommittee reports. Lisa, anything for accelerator repair?
Not at this time.
All right, Ashby Building Committee, June.
Nope, next meeting is the 18th.
All right. I don't have an update on the high school building committee, which is still open. Communications, Tom?
No, and no for negotiations.
All right, thank you. Finance, Lisa?
There is a change in the capital plan, and maybe Jeremy or Nancy want to address it. It was with the cameras at Varnum. They've allotted some money to the high school to do the upgrades in the high school from the Varnum Brook project. Did I get that right, Nancy and Jeremy? And so we just, in the finance committee, which we all approved the capital plan back last year for this project, we just made a simple vote to say we approved this. So that's all I'm updating the committee on.
So we, just so I understand, we took money from planned cameras at Varnum and moved those to replace cameras at the high school. Is that what I am understanding?
Correct. And we did include the Varnum Brook cameras in the ESSER grant, so they are being funded through that funding source. So we're not, we're going to accomplish that both projects actually.
Oh, okay, good.
So just a change in funding source, not a change in what's happening,
Yes.
right?
And then I'm assuming the high school cameras are relatively new. Are these new, like in addition cameras, like additional locations, or are these replacing or repairing issues that we've had with the quote new system?
So it's a little bit of both. It will repair issues with the new system, including filling some holes that weren't covered in a way that the SRO and the administration were happy with.
Mm-hmm.
It's also improving capabilities for access to the cameras. Accessibility will be through a secured website, as opposed to needing to be local on particular computers that are pre-configured. And will give some features such as the ability to do temporary shares of cameras. So if we have an issue, we would be able to share the cameras out with first responders that are on site. So it's to kind of upgrade our capabilities and plug some of those holes.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. All right, anything else? Any questions on that or anything else from finance?
And then we have no recommendation to change the budget and just move forward with the current budget that was voted back in March.
June?
Yes, at our last meeting, we almost made a motion, to change the budget based on some state numbers that came in differently than we anticipated. So since the state numbers came in different, I'm just wondering, are we going to adjust the budget accordingly for that? And if so, should the committee be making a vote on that tonight? And if that's the case, if Nancy would have the exact numbers available, that would be helpful.
Sorry. We still do not have anything from the state updating anything from what the governor has already released to us. There is some thought out there that we may hear something prior to the end of the month of April, which would be in advance of town meeting. But there is nothing definitive out there other than at this point, any type of savings that would be realized above and beyond the GIC retirement savings. And Nancy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, and I think what we were talking about was the assessment from the GIC for retiree health insurance came in less than we anticipated. So that's savings that we could include a vote for the budget to reduce that. It's approximately 200,000. And the other conversation we had was, I think, around potentially reducing a bus. Attempting to reduce a bus, I should say. It's always a challenge, but we would begin work on that if that was something that the committee wanted to move forward with. I believe there has been discussion about it. I think my only comment on it is that would be fine. We could do that. There is an override vote happening this month. I'm not exactly sure of the date in Townsend that has a number already in it. So I don't know if that might be a little confusing. We can still do what we'd like to do with our budget, but it's might make a couple of conversations need to happen after that purpose, for the purpose of the Townsend override.
The election is April 24th on a Monday.
Greg, I can't figure out how to raise my hand on my device I'm on here.
Go ahead, Susan.
Nancy, I think by the time we take, let's just call the bus 50. We take 300,000 and divide it across the towns, and turn that into an assessment. 300,000 off of our budget. By the time we turn that into an assessment, probably a fairly small number and not enough to make a difference anywhere as to affordability. I'm probably going to take a bit to crunch that number, but
Yeah, I have
just if we
numbers.
lower our budget by a certain amount, but the trickle out to the size of the assessment.
It will be very small.
Yeah, it's
right.
I mean, I have the numbers.
Comparatively
if
speaking.
you want them. Yeah, it's a reduction of about $270,000. So you can kind of the different percentages for the town from that, but Ashby would be in the just under $35,000, Pepperell around 132,000, and Townsend 103,000.
And it is, it's possible. The other thing, certainly don't want to speak for anyone on the committee, but I believe that possibly part of the question around this was the additional state money. There is a pretty high level of confidence that that communities will be receiving additional funds for out-of-district placements, which came in at a 14% increase for FY24. So there is talk that we will be seeing some potential money there, but again, there's certainly no guarantees, and there's no guarantee There's no number attached to it as to what we would look at. I know at one point, someone at the state level was recommending that all schools be responsible for 2% and that the state would fund the other 12. I have not heard that anything has been finalized with that. But that is something that, again, there is a high level of confidence that districts will be receiving something back for that. We just don't know how much, but it certainly would not solve some of the budget issues that we are facing post-COVID.
Thank you. June, do you have another comment?
Yes, I do. Although 270 sounds, minimal compared to our budget, even the smallest number there, 35,000, that could be a person's job ultimately. So I do think if this is money that we overestimated for the budget that we don't actually need to use, now is the time to make that cut so that it doesn't end up spent somewhere else or something happening with it. I don't think we should be overestimating the towns at all, even if it's, not what we would consider a large amount of money. I think that still makes a difference. So I do think we should reduce that.
Thank you, June. Randy?
I agree. One being that we talked about this coming in, that we were going to do reduce it by any revenue that we had coming in. We know about this. Two, we don't have another school committee meeting before the town meetings. So any reduction is going to be after the fact, and we want to give the towns, even if it is just, $35,000 for Ashby, give them the opportunity to be able to work that back into their budget on, and reconfigure what they're doing with their money. Same thing for Pepperell and Townsend, if they are at all looking at doing cuts because of our budget, giving them a little bit back gives them a little bit of flexibility, and they need time to reconsider that. So being that we know this money was overestimated and we have it, and because it's so close to the town meetings, I would suggest that we go ahead and vote this in. And I don't know what it does with the override in Townsend. I don't think, I can't remember the last time we did an override that we came into this kind of situation of lowering it after it's already been on a ballot. So if anybody has any advice or information about that, I'd be willing to listen.
I think the town can spend override money any way they want. So if they're collecting more than they need, that's my understanding. Because there's a multiple step process. There's having the NM budget approved on town floor, and there's getting the funding for that. And every town may choose a different way to get the funding.
All right, thank you, Susan. Superintendent?
I did just want to put out there just just for the committee to think about that this is, I believe, the first year since I've been in the district where we did not have a certain amount of discretionary funds in the budget, and discretionary funds are generally used for move-ins, class size, policy issues, the need to hire an additional teacher or a paraprofessional or something along those lines. We do not have that, generally speaking. We've been around the $200,000 to $250,000 mark for those positions, but I do just want to clarify that in this year's budget, because we were high and we remain high, I did not put contingency funds into the budget for such positions. So we would not have anywhere to pull from should we need something if this budget were to pass. So just want to alert the committee to that. Obviously, there's one-time funds and revolving and things of that sort, but that's really not something that we should be using for positions that could become permanent in the district, because it catches up.
All right, June?
On that note, though, I don't think any of the towns, well, I'm certain none of the towns have any extra flexible money either for anything. So I do think if we overestimated it, we need to let that go back to the towns.
Do we have the, I guess what those totals would be if someone wanted to make a motion?
Nancy, are we able to say $272,000?
Yeah, I think it's, I believe Randy's preparing.
Oh, okay.
Wrong. He
Okay,
has
I
the
just
numbers.
wasn't sure. Sorry, Randy.
That's
No
okay,
problem.
not a problem. I just had to bring
Sorry
up,
for the long pause.
I had to bring up the verbiage, so I knew where to put in the numbers, and then I
Yeah.
remembered I was still muted.
I know. I'll follow along too, Randy, so.
I'm
Okay.
just breaking the silence.
So I move that the school committee adopt an operational budget for FY '24 of $56,360,939, an FY '24 transportation budget of $4,086,799, FY '24 debt service of $4,241,313, and to use these funds to calculate FY '24 school assessments for member towns as required by statute. In addition, the committee authorizes the use of, correct me if I'm wrong, $2,045,000 from excess and deficiency account to offset the FY '24 operational budget.
Second,
All right, motion's been made and seconded, and that again is 272,000 less than what we voted on back in March. All right, any questions, comments from the committee? All right. Seeing none.
Only thing I have is, could the administration just double check that, what I assumed, which was the language on the Townsend ballot? It will be higher than what we need. I guess we're too far down that road now.
I think we will reach out to the Townsend administration to see what they think the approach would be. But I mean, my understanding with the override is that the first year it is identified as going towards whatever's listed in the ballot question, which is the school district. At future years, that's a whole nother story. So I don't believe anything's going to change with the ballot. That's already set and gone out to the taxpayers to come to the elections. What changes the Townsend's budget is my guess, slightly,
Right.
but we'll reach out to them.
All right, any other questions for anybody? Okay, so this is to approve the revised budget figures. Dave,
No.
Jessica,
Yes.
June,
yes,
Lisa,
No,
Randy,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Tom,
No,
all righty then, so I'm gonna vote yes, so that'll pass 5-3.
So we just lowered the last budget we voted by about 270, part of that being the GIC and part of that being the bus.
Yes.
Make sure.
Correct. Yep. Anything else on finance? Lisa?
no, not at this time.
All right. Superintendent, do you have something to say, or did you just?
Yes, I just wanted to say, I know that we have talked about a couple of times now about getting something out to the community with regard to the budget, and we are working to get a message out, but whatever message we get out based on conversations with legal counsel and with our PR firm, we have to make sure that it is not advocating for the budget and simply outlining the facts, because it is a political vote in at least one of our towns for an override, which we cannot advocate for. So the John Guilfoyle is working with us, trying to get something out, just informational with regard to the budget, probably something very similar to what I sent out in February, but with more numbers attached to it, just so that it was provided a clear picture. And we'll obviously run that by legal counsel before we send that out, just to make sure that it is in fact informational and not an advocacy document that we're sending out to the district. So I just wanted to clarify that, but the goal is to get something out within the next week or so that it's out well in advance of town meeting in the form of a press release, if we're permitted to do so. So looking at legal channels and also working with the PR firm. Also, sorry, I've been working on that with Miss Martin, Mr. Casey, and Miss Ivy. So it's from the school district side, and then the PR firm and legal counsel on the outside.
Do we have a timeline on that?
I'm hoping that we have something at some point in time this week, but it's not easy. That's what I've been told, to make sure that it is strictly informational. So just taking our lead from them, and it is you know, it is a little confusing, even though we are pulling ourselves away from the political aspect of it, that there's an override in one town and not in the other two. So just making sure that the message that we're getting out, the information that we're getting out, makes sense to the residents of all three towns.
And if I mean, with no override in Pepperell and Ashby, if the budgets as they're presented at town meeting pass, what is the next step for the district? Because I'm assuming that's not enough funding at that point.
If the budget does not pass in Pepperell and Ashby?
No, well, is without an override, how are Pepperell and Ashby presenting the full amount that we have assessed?
They are, it's my understanding that they are not presenting the full amount. Pepperell's
So
presenting.
if that passes at town meeting, then what does that mean for the district? Do we still have to cut the budget, or do we what's the next step at that point?
If what they have put in, if what they've put on in the warrant passes, then we would have to reduce the budget substantially.
Okay.
In order to make the budget work right now as it stands for Ashby and Townsend, we would be looking at a cut just under $2 million, and to make it work in Pepperell would be closer to just above $3 million. That's just based on what we currently have. And Nancy, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and it's either reductions to the budget or revenue sources, or grant, like another funding source,
right,
grants or otherwise. So, but yeah, the 2 out of 3 towns don't, if we don't have a 2 out of 3 approval of the budget, then it comes back to the school committee for basically the next steps, and it has to be reduced by at least $1, I think, which is, it's not usually what happens, but and then it would go back to the towns after that. Or if we were able to reduce it to a number that meets the town's appropriation, then 2 out of the 3 towns appropriation, then we're good.
And did we ever confirm that, I mean, the towns legally are able to change what we were assessing and put forward to town meeting?
So that's something that I posed to legal counsel. It is not something that normally happens, but legal counsel did not find anything that said that they actually had to put our number into their warrant. So again, we're in a very difficult situation. The only thing that could potentially happen would be for the override to pass in Townsend, and then for one of the other two communities to make a motion on the town hall floor that were to pass. That's my understanding. Obviously, there'd have to be a quorum, and then we would go from there. Otherwise, if the budget does not pass, then we will have to reconvene and address the current budget, and again, reduce it by at least $1. And then begin from there, because a dollar obviously would not do it either.
Well, that's if it doesn't pass, but if it does pass and that's not enough, then we would have to go back and have another town meeting at town expense we could ask for the same, if not more or less at that point, right? I mean, it's a shortfall at that point.
Yes, and again, I'm not used to this happening with the towns put in less money than what we have asked for.
Right.
They generally get to us and then they vote on that particular part of the warrant. But in this case, it did not happen.
Yeah, I don't understand how. And I don't know who made that decision, if it's a select board or the town finance committee, but how they make the decision to not even let the townspeople debate and make that call themselves seems not like the right path for the children of the community. But anyway, Randy, you have a comment?
Right. I have, two things. One is my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because again, we don't come into this situation very often, is if they put in a number less than what we assess, it's essentially them rejecting our budget, because it's not what we are assessing them. And I think it works the same. So if they say, we're going to give you $1, and we assess them, $10, we don't have to accept that $1 because they pass it. They're not giving us what we asked for. It's the same process as if they said no to the $10.
That's my understanding also.
So it essentially is, if they're not putting the full number through, that's, politics on their side. But just so that I'm looking up right now the draft Pepperell budget that they're putting forth on their website, and it looks like it has the full amount. It has 18,186,749 for the North Middlesex Regional School District.
Interesting. So how does that get funded without, well, maybe they've got
That I don't know. And
E&D or
that could be that they're going to try and figure out the funding, on the floor, or they have some other way that they're thinking about trying to fund it, or they're holding out hopes that we're going to be reducing it on the town floor. I don't know, because I have not spoken with them, but all I know is what they have on their website.
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
And my only comment to that, if I may, is that is not the information that we received over the phone.
Yeah, I have to say I am less than pleased with the communication from the towns this budget season.
Well, that's the other, I mean, we've been in discussions with town officials since October, when the finance budget summits. Town officials have been at those meetings. So to play these games at the 11th hour just again does a disservice to the community. So that's slightly frustrating. All right, anything else?
Is there anything? Oh, sorry. I was just gonna ask Nancy if there was anything else that I missed.
No, I was just, my understanding with Pepperell's budget, I'm not sure on Ashby's, but my understanding is if they vote a budget that is not balanced, that there is some inference that it would potentially go to an override vote. But the override language isn't in the warrant that I noticed or saw in the current, town meeting warrant. So that was my understanding from speaking to the town administrator, that if there's an unbalanced budget, that would be automatically put towards a an override vote, which is, I think, the intention of not include, of having the school, all their funding shortfall in the school budget so that they can then do it as one vote. Not totally sure how that works. I thought, most of them usually put some kind of article on for 2.5 override. I'm not an expert on town meeting, procedure, but it sounded like that's their understanding that, so it's not that they didn't put it on yet. They're waiting to see if they have a unbalanced budget situation for town meeting.
If we don't come out of town meeting with an approved budget and it drags on, do we have a sense of what the commissioner would do in terms of designating a budget on a month by month? I know the minimum is 1/12, but do we know?
I remember one year that didn't happen until December.
Oh,
I think December 1st is the deadline or something. This is really old information I'm digging into in my head.
I mean, I haven't been through that process, but my understanding is that it would be a 1/12 budget plus contracts that are in place. So, and they would make you generally stay within a 1/12 of the prior year, except for a couple of exceptions.
okay. All right, thank you. Anything else on finance before we move on?
No.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to policy, Randy.
I would like to offer my apologies to the school committee for the regional agreement. I had meant to have a full document to you with the changes and the discussion. So because you don't have that information ahead of time, we can just go ahead and start the conversations and have all the conversations we need to have. And I will make sure I get that document to you for the next meeting, that we can move forward unless people feel confident and comfortable voting tonight. The big thing for the regional agreement that I wanted to discuss tonight is the school committee representation. So that was one of the big things that the DSE came back with our proposed changes, is that we no longer, I shouldn't really say no longer, because we don't meet the one person, one vote ruling right now with the current representation as they are calculating it today. Still a little confused on how the court ordered us to have this configuration and it not meet it then, but we'll just move forward here. Our options in front of us is we can do weighted voting, or we can change our school committee representation. The way weighted voting works is our current configuration stays the same. So we have 3 members from Pepperell, 2 from Townsend, 1 from Mashpee, and 3 at-large members. And the rotation doesn't change. The number of people from in each category doesn't change, but the weight of each person's vote would change. And so I believe, actually I have the document in front of me. I apologize, I didn't pull it up, but Ashby would be something like 0.95 for the Ashby rep. Townsend reps would be like a 1.2, I think, and Pepperell was 1.15, and the at-large members all get 1.0 weighted voting. That's one way that a lot of places get around the one person, one vote. It's just it correlates to how many community residents that you're representing in the position. The other configuration that would change this is, I do believe that if we go to 4 Pepperell representatives, 3 from Townsend, 1 from Ashby, and 1 at-large member, we can keep the same number of school committee members and keep this as a 9-member group. But that should satisfy 1 person, 1 vote. So we do need to kind of have a discussion on how everybody feels about weighted voting versus changing the representation. And I welcome comments, questions, and to get a feel for how the school committee is thinking on this.
Comments from anybody? Questions? Everybody understand what Randy just explained? I had to hear it like 3 or 4 times before it made sense to me. So.
The one downside to the weighted voting, so that everybody knows, is where we have a majority vote right now. We know it's 5-4 is a majority of the school committee. With the weighted voting, there is one scenario where 4 people would be considered the majority because of the weight of their vote. And the same thing would happen with the 2/3 vote. Instead of needing 6 for a 2/3 vote, there is one scenario with the combination of people with the highest weight in their voting to make it 5 would take the 2/3 vote.
Right, I guess, oh, June, go ahead.
I don't know. It's interesting because I was leaning toward the weighted voting, but at the same time to have not even a full person's worth of a vote is a little odd. And however, it seems like, I don't know. I don't know what, I mean, they're almost even, but it almost seems like the other way would end up better if we, and less confusing anyhow, to tally votes, but I don't know. I guess I have to kind of think about it a little more, but I don't think one way is way better than the other way. I think they're, in the end, it's going to shake out pretty much the same, but
Okay.
it's weird.
I'll go into it while you're thinking about that, just so you know, the other changes that we're making. The large majority of the changes to the document are legal. So we needed to update language for the current Mass General Law that's in place. We updated school buildings on what we actually have in place and what's district owned, what's leased. We have a new provision in there, a new article just talking about if we want to sell a district owned building, it's going to need to be special legislation that we need to put through the Massachusetts legislature in order for us to sell a district owned building. That's just, we try to put some provisions in there, and because there's no law that that guides that, they said that we couldn't have anything in our agreement that was very specific on that. Changing, and then we're changing the rolling average for the assessments. So the general operating assessment is going to go to a 5-year rolling average of enrollment on October 1. And we're also going to a 5-year rolling average for any debt calculations on any buildings. And district programs are going to count as a square footage of a building for capital debt on a district-wide basis. So that if we move district-wide programs from one building that doesn't have debt to a building that, or that has debt to a building that doesn't have debt, we're not causing one town to pay more or less based on our choice to move the students. Like I said, I'll have that all outlined in for everybody and which parts of the document that is in. But if anybody has any questions for me on what we're changing, Tom, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to the structure, I guess. I think similar to June, it feels a little weird to say that like one member isn't worth a vote and other members are like worth more than a vote. I get the rationale behind it, but that doesn't both optically and in reality feel great to me. But that's just me.
Thank you.
I think the optics are probably an important consideration, because those on the outside, like I said, it's taken numerous explanations for me to fully understand and put my head around it. The general observer, someone from the public watching a meeting, and you get one of those 5-3 or 4-3 votes or 4-5 votes, but the 4 overpower the 5 just because of the weighting, something like that's going to be confusing and probably cause an uproar. that's
Mm.
is where it is, I guess, if that's where we go.
Nancy?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that if you are using the weighted method of voting, that should the population shift, you can adjust those weighted values fairly easily without changes in elections or the count of membership. So that's why some there are a number of districts that use this weighted voting option, and that's partly why they consider it. So what looks like a 4-3-1 right now might, in 10 years when we revisit the census, might change, which means that you're going back to the configuration and the voting and the election process potentially. Whereas weighted voted, you can just make that adjustment. You can build that into the agreement that should the population change and shift, that on this census data, you would then change the weight of the votes without any issues. Now, having said that, I don't think our district really changes that much over these past number of censuses. So perhaps it's not a non-issue, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, I will say that since the late 90s, when we had that court order to go to this configuration, the proportion of residents really did not change much. These same scenarios now would have worked then.
No, Randy, is this weighted based on the rolling average?
No. It is just current census 2020 census data. Because it's not for the district, it's for the towns. Jessica?
Do we have to vote on this together, or can we vote on this as a separate issue?
What do you mean by together or a separate issue? Oh, as far as the entire document versus, like I said, I'm probably not going to bring it to a vote here now because we have a lot to think about. And I would like you to see the document and what's changing, but I'd like to have just one big vote and kind of get your sense of it. So yeah, we could break it out if at the next meeting everyone likes everything else but this, and we can incorporate it afterwards.
We also like just make a motion to amend when the full document comes up, so we can do it either way. All right, I think that's it for regional agreement.
Thank you. If you have any more questions, please just email me and just ask, and I'd be happy to explain what we've been learning or get more answers if we don't have an answer for your question. And then to finish off policy, we have two policies that are coming up for adoption. We had passed them the last time. There was a CB, so the regional school superintendent. There was one change, and I apologize for not actually putting in the document, but I will change it. And so I will move to approve policy CB, regional school superintendent, with the amendment of selectmen to select persons of the member towns being replaced. And this is for adoption.
Second.
Randy and June. Randy, just clarification, is that select persons or is it select board? I know in Purple they
Oh,
changed. to
is it
select
board? Okay,
Yeah.
then select board would be
Thank you.
fine. Apologize.
No worries. Any other questions, comments on policy CB? All right, so this is for adoption of policy CB. Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan? Susan, are you still there? All right, Tom?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so that's 7 yes, 1 abstention. Policy CBI, Randy?
Yep, and then I will move to approve policy CBI, evaluation of the superintendent for adoption.
Second.
I didn't receive any comments on this one.
That's Randy and June. Any questions or comments? All right, Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan? Tom?
Yes.
No vote yes, so that's 7 yes, 1 abstention. Anything else, Randy?
That is all.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have an executive session. Before I read this paragraph, I just want to make sure, and I don't, Robin or Jeremy, who this is for. I know last time we had issues getting back into the Zoom meeting, so I just want to make sure that we.
Yeah, we shouldn't, Craig, the last time, in order for me to go into the executive session, which was a Zoom session, I had to log out of the first session.
Okay.
So here I set it up as a Google, so the executive session is a Google Meet. So this session will stay open.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate that.
welcome. Yep.
All right, so I'll take a motion for the school committee to meet in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A for the following purposes. Purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the superintendent of schools. Purpose 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, and that's for executive session minutes dated March 20, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All right, June and Tom, thank you. All right, so this is to enter exec session. Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan, Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. I actually don't. Oh, yes, Susan's there. I will vote yes. All right, so the school committee will now be meeting in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A for the following purposes. Purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the superintendent of schools. Purpose 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. And that'll be for the approval of executive session minutes dated March 20, 2023. The committee will reconvene in an open session. So we will head over to the Google Meet, and we'll be back here shortly. Thanks for. All right, we are back in open session at 8:58. And I'll take a motion to adjourn if folks have nothing else.
So moved.
Second?
All right, it's Dave and June. Dave,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So we're adjourned. Appreciate everybody. Have a good evening. We'll talk to you next time.
Good night.
Night.